So I realise we're a few months into the 2020s, but since the whole country is in lockdown, I thought best time to reflect on the films of the 2010s. Now, whilst the title says the best of the decade, I can assure you this is in no way meant to be objective. This is my own opinion, and opinions are malleable, so let's be honest, I'll probably change my opinion 5 minutes after I upload this. But after a lot of thought, I believe this is the best list I can come up with. Now, I have limited myself to 20 films here, so I know I've picked my absolute favourites. So I thought I'd show some of the films that almost made the list but didn't quite get there. But that shouldn't take away from the fact that all these films are worth watching. And just for shits and giggles, I might as well show you some of my least favourite films from the 2010s. Oh wow, this is a lot. Oh, that one's bad. Oh, that one's even worse. Oh, Jesus Christ. And for those who are at all curious, probably my absolute least favourite of the decade would have to be Slender Man, closely followed by Suicide Squad.
Here comes Slipknot.
And then maybe, what's that other superhero one called? Oh yeah. Now obviously bear in mind I haven't seen everything, but all the things that were on my watch list from the 2010s that interested me I have watched. But without further ado, let's go! So this is a good example of a film that wouldn't necessarily be an objective top 20, but it's certainly a personal favourite. The director, Denis Villeneuve, went on a roll in this decade, so much so that this will not be his last appearance on this list. He has such a good grasp on creating tension, and it's so apparent in this film because you feel it on multiple viewings. This means that the tension doesn't just come from wanting to know what happens next, but from the powerful sense of dread created from the tone. And emphasising this tone is Jóhann Jóhannsson's amazing score. May you rest in peace, sir. And surprise, surprise, this film looks beautiful with Roger Deakins as a cinematographer. Now, the film does also have a great screenplay, but it's really elevated by these technical elements to stop it from being a simple drug cartel film. Now, it is incredibly dark in tone, so it isn't for everyone, but if you appreciate a well-made film, then watch the hell out of it.
3 lanes left, 7 o'clock. Green Civic.
Bring your window down. Gun. Gun. Gun left.
Behind movie scenes, behind the movie scenes. Sabirani, she's the one that keeps the dream alive.
I didn't know her very well, but she was around. Saw her at parties and shows and stuff. I don't know what happened to her, but
I can tell you it had nothing to do with my friends. We're just enjoying our world.
Now this is a very strange one and one of the least recommendable I'm going to talk about. It's essentially a 2.5 hour long what the fuck moment, but it's also very entertaining. It's clear after the success of It Follows that the director David Robert Mitchell could literally do what he wanted, so he went all out. It has so much interesting stuff going on that it's like sensory overload, but in a good way. Now of course this didn't do very well financially. In fact, it was just sort of pulled out from cinemas and then just dumped on VOD. I kid you not, for a while the only physical release was on DVD because that's cheaper. But I do get the feeling this will get a cult following over time, and it really deserves it. It is so intriguing at every turn. It has a really interesting style to it as well, clearly taking inspiration from Hitchcock, and the score is clearly Bernard Herrmann inspired. The underlying themes are very well presented. It talks about the facade of Hollywood fame and the drastic measures people take to break into a creative industry, but it just does it all in such a delightfully strange way. This is just so unique, and it's one of the many reasons why I love it. So I'm gonna cheat here by including the Raid 1 and 2. Anytime I rewatch either one of them, my favourite switches, so it makes sense to include them both. Now most people who've seen these can agree it's some of the best action put to film, and as you watch it becomes abundantly obvious that you're watching some of the best talent in the world when it comes to stunt work. Every single hit feels powerful and purposeful, and I never get tired of watching it. The first one is unapologetic about being a straight up action film. It has quite a few cliched story bits, but it's like it's saying to you, I don't care, I just want an excuse to show this. And the second one honestly feels like a live action anime. It introduces the criminal underworld and ramping up the action in a much longer runtime. Honestly, if the idea of a foreign language film puts you off, just look up any fight scene from either of the two films and I promise you, if you enjoy action, you will be convinced. I mean, this prison riot or this train scene, Jesus. If you're in the mood for good action, there's not many better places you can look.
When I think of my wife, I always think of her head. I picture cracking her lovely skull, unspooling her brains, trying to get answers. The primal questions of any marriage. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? What have we done to each other?
So I might just be a fan of David Fincher. Just a little bit. The thing that resonates the most with me about this film though is the themes. Talking about the way modern media manipulates opinion by just telling lies, and how people compartmentalize complex situations into black and white moral dilemmas. You're right or you're wrong. You're a hero or you're a villain. There's absolutely no in between, and this is conveyed so well through this story. It's not about who's the better person, it's about who's better at presenting themselves on television. And it certainly helps that the filmmaking is so expertly executed. Fincher and his cinematographer Jeff Cronenworth have a perfect relationship. I can confidently say this is Ben Affleck's best performance, as he works opposite the frankly scary Rosamund Pike. So as well as it being very profound, it's just an intriguing mystery and an intense thriller. Watch this, please.
A, I'm an award-winning scrimshander. B, I'm a moderately influential warlord. C, I write personality quizzes for magazines.
Okay. Well, your hands are far too delicate for real scrimshaw work. And I happen to be a charter subscriber to Middling Warlord Weekly, so I'd recognize you. I'm gonna go with C.
And you? Who are you?
I'm the guy to save you from all this awesomeness.
So it's no secret that the person that loves Nicholas Winding Refn films most is Nicholas Winding Refn.
Oh, I'm like you. I have no regrets about Only God Forgives. I think it's a masterpiece, and it is.
His attitude is that he puts things on the screen and says, fuck you, this is what I want, so this is what I'm doing. But with Drive, I think he found just the right balance. For one, his often criticized violence makes sense in this story, and the contrasting bright colors give the film a unique style. Now, whilst this is technically an action film, it's certainly not the focus. The action is used sparsely, and when it does come, it focuses on the build-up of stares and pauses rather than the actual explosions. But it just means when the explosions do happen, it's a lot more satisfying. There's something about this film that hits home every time I watch it. It brings up feelings of nostalgia and hopefulness, despite its horrific violence. I mostly credit the soundtrack for this. This more than deserves to be on here, and it's definitely worth your time.
Yes? Say your name.
Freddie Quill.
Say it again.
Freddie Quill.
Say it again.
Freddie Quill.
Say it again.
Freddie Quill.
Might as well say it one more time just to make sure you know who you are.
Freddie Quill.
Like most people, my introduction to Paul Thomas Anderson was through There Will Be Blood. And while that doesn't blow me away like it does for many others, it's clear he knows what he's doing. But after watching The Master, it's pretty clear that, well, he's a master. This is one of the best looking films I've ever seen, with each new shot bringing a moment of awe. The performances are utterly amazing. It's a real blessing to see Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman share the screen. And all this talent culminates in the processing scene, which I think as a scene is genuinely perfect. The film touches on PTSD and alcoholism, but also the idea of false prophet-like leaders. I mean, Scientology is never directly mentioned, but it's clear that's what it's hinting at. This is just essentially really well made in all areas and should be watched by anyone and everyone.
Are you thoughtless in your remarks?
I usually put some thought into them.
Do you linger at bus stations for pleasure?
No.
Do you get muscle spasms for no reason?
No.
Do your past failures bother you?
No.
Do your past failures bother you?
No.
Do your past failures bother you?
No.
Do your past failures in life bother you?
Films, foil, fail, films, go, girls, no, falls, fall.
This is some of the best music ever written for a movie. Even listening to the tracks by themselves make you feel uneasy. When they're paired with the events in the film, you're left feeling rather disturbed. In a literal sense, it's about an alien who comes to Earth and learns about the human way of life, but there's so much to be interpreted. Scarlett Johansson is so good in this, and I honestly question whether or not she was actually British. I mean, her accent is so perfect, I was fooled into thinking I misremembered where she was from. This has elements of sci-fi, horror, romance, and a character study all in one. This is another strange one though, so do be warned.
You know, he can be an asshole, and I can get really pissed off, and I'll call him on being an asshole.
I'm gonna stop you there. When you do this for real, don't ever say that. People don't accept mothers who drink too much wine and yell at their child and call him an asshole. I get it. I do it too.
So I went into this expecting a fairly entertaining rom-com style divorce film, but I was left staggered by this writing and these performances. Noah Baumbach just knows exactly where to put specific words and actions to make the best effect, and he clearly knows how to direct actors because Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver have career best performances here. You're constantly reminded that these are human beings going through these stressful situations. Now I'm sure we've all seen the wall punch on Twitter. Now whilst you may think this seemed comical, it works perfectly in the film. It all builds up to that argument because they're so frustrated and they're having to keep these frustrations inside throughout this whole divorce process. You really do understand why they have this outburst. This film avoids cliches, it has a good heart, and it's a well-written and understated movie.
Want to get married? Fuck it! There's so much I didn't do!
Oh, thanks for that.
You're welcome!
I can't believe I have to know you forever!
Oh, you're fucking insane! And you're fucking winning!
Needless to say, I keep on check. She was on back, never none less. Calling it quits now, baby, I'm a wreck. Please bring me your way. Ooh, certain things you just can't refuse.
Miles.
She wanna drive me.
Miles.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, before going in to see this, I would have never expected it to be on this list, but here we are. How is it this good? I think I can confidently say that it's the best superhero film ever made. I mean, obviously you can say The Dark Knight, but I see that more as a great crime drama. In terms of capturing that fun feeling of a superhero film, nothing comes close to this. Each character has their own motivations, downfalls, arcs, and distinct personality. No matter who you are, you can probably find someone to relate to. This means you are actually invested when things happen to them. The sense of humor is so refreshing as well. It doesn't feel like a lot of Marvel humor that seems mandated to be in there to appeal to the widest audience possible. It feels natural and organic. And dear God, the animation. It is a constant feast for the eyes. I'm sure the vast majority of people who are interested in seeing this already have, but fuck it, rewatch it.
Miles, where did you go?
I'm right here.
Where? I can't see you.
I'm right in front of you. Can Spider-Man turn invisible?
Not in my universe.
You just poked me in my eye.
This is incredible. Some kind of fight or flight thing.
What's that?
This is the absolute epitome of Scorsese's trademarks. It works so perfectly here to reflect the lifestyle of excess, and how ultimately that can destroy a person if it goes too far, which the critics didn't seem to get. This is about a man who had everything, but it still wasn't enough for him. Now this first and foremost is a hilarious comedy, but it very subtly grounds the humour to shift the meaning of these situations. A perfect example is in one of the funniest scenes of the film, where the two main characters are high on Quaaludes. All of a sudden Jordan's daughter is cut to. Then this funny drug trip scene turns into a really scary affair. Scorsese is God. I would genuinely consider it one of his best. It's 3 hours long, but it goes by in a flash and it's infinitely rewatchable. Can you tell that I quite like this? I don't know, I think I'm being too subtle.
Fucking break your face. What did you do? You piece of shit. Fuck you. I wanna fucking kill you. I wanna fucking kill you. I got you.
I used to think this was the beginning of your story. Memory is a strange thing. It doesn't work like I thought it did. We are so bound by time, by its order.
Hello again, Denis. This is the exact science fiction movie I want to see. Characters are given a problem and they methodically try and solve it. Aliens have landed on Earth. What the hell do they want? And without spoiling anything, finding out why is unexpected and well executed. You really get the sense that it's the best way the story possibly could have gone. Yet again, this is another great score from Johan Johansson. Rest in peace again, sir. And the music elevates so many scenes and makes them feel so powerful. Moments like first seeing the ship and first entering the ship give me goosebumps. The overall sound design is amazing as well. The film has a great emotional heart to it, and this is just good, intelligent science fiction. The type that we don't really get anymore. Please watch.
Not so close to the fuse. More like you're holding a bird or something.
Easily one of the best remakes ever made. Now, the original is a classic Italian horror, and it seemed at first wrong-headed to remake it. I mean, the reason you remake a film is to retell the story in a different way, but the substance of the original isn't the story, more so how it's presented. But while it's clear that Luca Guadagnino clearly loves the original, he knew exactly what to do to improve it. For example, the original took place in a dance academy for no other reason other than spectacle, it seems, only having one dancing scene in the entire film. And in this one, the dancing is actually part of the witch's rituals, which is kind of genius. In many ways, it's the complete opposite of the original. The original score by Goblin is completely contrasted by Thom Yorke's modern one. And above all, it just works better as a horror film. It's genuinely unnerving at times, especially in these weird dream sequences. And quite honestly, it has one of the most horrific scenes I've ever seen in a horror. I refuse to spoil it here, so you just have to see it for yourself. But I guess I'll use a meme to recreate my reaction.
What the fuck?
Anyway, this is definitely my favorite horror of the decade, so check it out. Now, I know I've said this won't be for everyone a few times now, but this time I really mean it. This is bloody bonkers, but it's so good. It's edited and shot so precisely, and whilst it does get unsettling, it's genuinely funny at times. I mean, it actually includes well-timed and well-done fart humor. Farts. Robert Pattinson's great here, but Willem Dafoe really shines. This is undoubtedly his best performance, well, unless you count Boondock Saints.
There was a firefight!
Evidently, this isn't meant to be taken literally. There's a lot of metaphors happening and it leaves a lot to interpretation. And it's not like I'm alone in praising the film either. It's very much a love or hate type thing, but people who love it unanimously call it a 10 out of 10. I mean, it was going to end up on this list somehow.
You wait here. I'm gonna go to the house.
Relax.
Frank.
Go that way. I'll meet you on the other side. Anna! What? Roger, you see my daughter walk by here? No, sir. Problem? Anna! Here! Dad was parked right here. Anna! Anna! Hello? Did you see him? No. Oh! I couldn't find them! Were you messing around in this house? No. I told you not to come. We weren't. They were just on the RV and we got him off of it.
Tell me everything you remember about that RV.
Everything. A ladder on the back.
Please.
Hello again, Denis. Yet another example of a not terribly original story elevated through its presentation. And oh my god, can you believe it? Roger Deakins' cinematography is amazing. But what this is a great example of is he's able to make it look naturalistic but still striking. He does this really well in other films like No Country for Old Men and A Serious Man. I just don't know how he does it. Seriously, he might be a wizard. Another standout here is the lead performances from Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. The year before, Gyllenhaal went through a lot of police training for End of Watch, which means he plays a detective very convincingly. But dear Lord Hugh Jackman, this guy portrays so much pain and torment that it's actually kind of depressing. And the interactions this brings out is glorious to watch. Now, this is a dour subject matter and it's not exactly fun to watch, but it's just so uplifting to see people who know what they're doing. These are all insanely talented people and they've come together to make something great. And you should probably watch that great thing.
Did you give him a lie detector? You gave us a lie detector. Did you give him one?
Sir, I understand what you're asking me. Yes, we did. We gave him a lie detector, and there's no way of... A lie detector doesn't work if you don't understand the questions.
Well, maybe he wasn't on his own. How could he drive an RV if he has an IQ of a 10-year-old?
Hey, we're considering all possibilities.
I don't think you are considering all possibilities.
I hear what you're saying.
No,
Sir,
listen to
sir,
me. Just shut the fuck up for a fucking second.
This is what I'm gonna need you to do for me. I need you to calm down.
I'm sorry. Please listen to me for a second.
Det ved du også godt, jeg ikke har, ikke? Tror du på, hvad jeg siger, eller tror du ikke på det?
Jeg ved ikke.
Theo, jeg har ikke været din datter. Tror du for helvede heller ikke selv på? Jeg ved det ikke, Lukas. Jeg ved det ikke. Theo.
This is probably the least well-known film I'm gonna have on here, but it has refused to leave my mind since the first time I watched it. Again, very dark in tone, which you should expect at this point. It's about a nursery teacher who's wrongfully accused of sexually harassing a minor. Very cheery, I know, but it just works as an example of how dangerous a lie can be. The smallest of actions can truly ruin someone's life and turn the whole world against them. And this is exemplified through Mads Mikkelsen's just amazing performance. He portrays his vulnerability in such a way that I feel genuinely worked up about how much he's struggling and how vile people are being to him. I can't recall many other times where I'm this emotionally invested in a character. It's such a well-told story on all accounts that wraps up with a perfect conclusion. And guess what? I'm not gonna spoil it, so you'll have to watch it yourself.
Dag, jeg skal have 2 koteletter. Hvilke koteletter? Jeg måske mener de der svinekoteletter. Du kan ikke få noget her. Jeg har ret til at købe ind her. Du skal gå nu. Smut med dig. Jeg vil gerne have 2 koteletter.
근데 이 친구 약속 잡기 되게 어렵다던데.
아 잠깐. 제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 과선배는 김진모 그는 이사촌.
Well, everyone saw this coming, didn't they? Perhaps the most deserving Best Picture win ever.
I don't know what Parasite is. I don't give a shit about Parasite. I'm sorry. If you won Best Foreign Film, you should automatically be invalid to even be qualified to win Best Picture.
And the fact that it's starting to open people up to foreign cinema is a really good thing. It's broken international box office records, which just goes to show that you don't need focus testing, pandering films to make a shitload of money. Just try to make a great film. If you pull it off, it goes a long way. There's not much more I can say about this that hasn't already been said. The acting, the cinematography, the editing, the writing, set design, the entertaining humor, the universal themes, the score, the seamless blending of genres, it's all just so well done. Please don't be put off by the fact that you have to read subtitles. It is definitely worth your time. And once you're done, maybe watch some more foreign films. If you want something that's still quite accessible, I'd recommend Oldboy. Everyone owes it to themselves to at least give this one a try.
아, 망했다 이거. 공짜 와이파이 못 쓴다 이제. 야, 기정아. 야, 윗집 아줌마랑 IP 타임 암호를 거셨다 드디어.
암호. 이래서 국까지 눌러봤어?
안 돼.
반대 순서로도 해봐.
안 된다니까.
아이씨, 뭐야 그럼? 그 문자고 카톡이고 다 안 되는 거야?
그치.
야, 김기태. 이 씨발 자는 척하지 말고 어떻게 생각하셔? 핸드폰도 다 끊기고 와이파이도 다 끊기고, 응? 씨발 계획이 뭐야?
I'm sorry.
No, stay.
Holy hell, this came out 6 years ago. That's worrying. But I knew as soon as I saw it back in the day it would end up on this list. It's a story about an artist's obsession and how it takes over them. And it asks lots of interesting questions. Is it better to live longer with decent success or die unhappy and young but still be really well remembered? But at the core, it's about this relationship between student and teacher, and it is very, very captivating. It actually seems very simple and almost one note to begin with, but as it goes on and you learn the goals and motivations of each character, it gets far more interesting. J.K. Simmons gives what I think is a perfect performance. The actual music in the film is brilliantly performed and fitting for the intensity of the film, and of course said music is included in the now kind of famous ending. It's one of the best third acts I've ever seen, and the rest of the film perfectly builds to it. Even with successive films that Damien Chazelle has made, I don't think he's quite captured the feeling of this one again. The amount of times you're just not quite sure how to feel about what you're seeing. Initially something can seem triumphant and inspiring, but when looked at closer it has a darker meaning. If you've seen this, you know how good it is. If you haven't, you should probably see it.
Your boyfriend's dick. Do not come early.
It was hard to know who was more crazy. Me or everyone else.
Hello? Where are you? Where are you now?
Here they come again, worming their way into the black matter of my brain.
Help us, Max. You promised to help us.
I don't know if anyone was expecting this to be as good as it was. I mean, George Miller's in his 70s and he's coming back to an old franchise that's been dead for years. There's not a good track record for that sort of thing. But it does seem like this is the Mad Max film he's always wanted to make. Like, this is the sort of thing that's always been in his head, but the limits of technology and budget have stopped him. But not this time. Holy shit, did this deliver. Normally when a film is described as having non-stop action, it isn't actually non-stop action, but this comes pretty close. There's a well-earned sort of rest in the break between the second and third act, but the film is essentially one long chase scene. It's like a shot of adrenaline that's stretched out over 2 hours. This is endlessly rewatchable. I mean, I've watched this 4 times in a week without batting an eye, and still having the same feeling of intense joy. This is a masterpiece of action filmmaking, and it will no doubt be seen as a classic in years to come. Now, number 2 and number 1 switch around a whole lot for me. I had to think about this for quite a while before finally deciding on one over the other, but after much deliberation, this is the order I've gone with. I am so ridiculously happy that I got to see this in IMAX when I could. Roger Deakins is considered one of the best cinematographers of all time, and this is definitely his masterpiece. Every single shot looks like a piece of art that a digital artist has slaved over for months to get everything pixel perfect. But again, still he manages to ground it in the world of the film. The man is not human, and thank God he finally won the Oscar for this, because if he didn't, someone was getting hit. I don't know who, but someone. Now, this is by far the most talked about aspect of it, but it thrives in all areas. The production design is so awe-inspiring, but it makes it look like it's a world that's lived in. Oh, and that lovely, lovely score. Hello again, Denis. This man was just born to make this. Now, I'm not actually the biggest of fans of the original.
What did you say?
But this does absolutely everything a sequel should do. I mean, the main character has a relationship with a hologram and it's more investing than anything in the original. And despite the stereotype of grumpy Harrison Ford who doesn't want to do anything these days, this is, in my opinion, the best performance he's ever given. And the way he's introduced is so effective. It makes me wish that Denis' wishes were upheld and he was kept out of the marketing. Overall though, this film is literally astounding. Just knowing how hard it is to make even the smallest of projects, let alone making them good, makes this even more impressive. I mean, every single moment is visceral and gripping. It is truly outstanding artistry, and it absolutely deserves to be seen.
Officer K, D6-3.7. Let's begin.
So, here it is, my #1 film of the entire decade, and of course it has to go to...
¡Hágase una lavada con su paella! Y la encontré porque estaba la paellera agarrada.
What is more important to our culture than the Joker?
Sorry, no. Obviously, it's The Rise of Skywalker. Okay. I'll stop now.
I'm sorry, I mean it.
I appreciate that, but I have to go study.
Come on, you don't have to study, let's just talk.
I can't.
Why?
Because it is exhausting. Dating you is like dating a Stairmaster.
All I meant is that you're not likely to... Currently. I wasn't making a comment on your parents. I was just saying that you go to BU. I was stating a fact, that's all. And if it seemed rude, then of course I apologize.
I have to go study.
You don't have to study.
Why do you keep saying I don't have to study?
Because you go to BU. You want to get some food?
So this genuinely feels like it was made for me. The pairing of David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin is quite literally a dream combination. I mean, I've watched this so many times I could probably talk along to it, and it has a lot of talking. This is one of the best screenplays ever written, and it was helmed by David Fincher with such precision, even to the point where he timed how long Aaron Sorkin wanted the dialogue to go and then made the actors go at that exact same time. It's clearly made with lots of passion. I kind of became obsessed with the behind the scenes of this, just watching the process of some of these people.
We had 3 weeks of rehearsal, which was a great luxury, and that rehearsal was sitting around a table, reading through the scenes, talking about the scenes.
I'm CEO, bitch. I don't know how that connects. To me, it feels oddly like a dangling participle here.
Okay, if we only hear that once, which we do earlier, is that enough for the payoff at the end?
I think so.
Okay.
I've even taken Aaron Sorkin's masterclass to learn his process after seeing this. Every actor just disappears into their character. I mean, we can pretty much agree that Jesse Eisenberg was born to play Mark Zuckerberg. Even Justin Timberlake is great. Justin Timberlake. The themes of how the modern world communicates is still relevant 10 years later. The score is one of the best ever created. It's edited to perfection. It's funny, emotional, dramatic, and it's my favorite film of the decade. Damn it! I think I just went primal.
I'm not a psychiatrist, but...
I'm glad we've got that on the record.
You're not a psychiatrist, but what?
A psychiatrist would say that he was paranoid.
They'll hire private detectives who will follow you day and night. You're a target for high-priced escorts. I can't prove it, but I know they tap my phones. Whatever it is that's gonna trip you up, you've done already. Private behavior is a relic of a time gone by, and if somehow, someway you've managed to live your life like the Dalai Lama, they'll make shit up. Because they don't want you. They want your idea. And they want you to say thank you while you, excuse me, wipe your chin and walk away.
Anyway, that was the list of the rest of the decade for me. If you agree, I don't know, press the thumbs up button. If you don't agree, then you're fucking wrong. No, it's, you know, stay safe out there.